Hi, you guys. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Renee. If you're new here, I sell budgeting tools, savings challenges, and all that to help you save money. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you guys how I make my matte vellum envelopes. So these are what the A6 matte vellum envelopes look like. As you guys can see, they are a really big hit in my shop, and I thought, why not show you guys how I make it, just to give you guys a little bit of behind the scenes. All right, you guys, we're going to go into Canva. So first I start by creating the outline of each envelope. As you guys can see, I just got a regular line here, and I'm just going to line it up with the other envelope that I had created. I like to change the line weight to about 2. It doesn't need to be too thick. I just need to see it when I'm trying to cut out each envelope. Now I'm going to extend that line to about 6.5 inches. That's how wide my matte vellum envelopes usually are. Now I'm going to duplicate that line. Of course, you can just add another one. I just duplicate it because it's so much easier. And I'm going to rotate it, making sure that it is 90 degrees for the side of the envelopes. Now that I have that line at 90 degrees, I'm going to line it up with the other line that I created. I'm going to extend it to 3.2 inches. This is going to be the height of our envelopes. In this example, I did 3.3, but I believe I went back and fixed it to 3.2 is what I normally do. Of course, 3.3 works just as fine. What you're going to do is duplicate each of the lines and then create the full outline of the envelope. Now that that's done, I'm going to highlight all 4 lines and I'm going to group them together. Now it's time to add the text. I like to use 2 different texts for my envelopes. I have a very minimal text, and of course I have my cursive. I use Vellum as my cursive font, and this is the size that I normally use, about 26 for each envelope. You want to make sure that your text is centered in the envelope, so play with it until you get those grid lines that shows you that it is fully centered. And now that you have that done, I like to group everything together and copy and paste to add another envelope. Per page, I like to do 3 envelopes altogether. And there's the outline for all 3 envelopes. Now you're just going to want to download. I like to download as a PDF print and print it on my inkjet printer. This is the type of vellum paper that I use. I get it on Amazon, and I'll leave it linked in the description box for you. So this is what it looks like. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut out each individual envelope. This one on the bottom here, you're going to see it looks a little different because it's a different light design that I was creating that didn't come out quite right. So I'm just going to do the top 2. And I like to use my Fiskars, or however you pronounce it, to cut them out. So because the lines are fairly faint, you just have to make sure that you're cutting just slightly inside of the lines so that you still have the same size of envelope that you need, if that makes sense. And you have to be careful when you print it out. Do not make the mistake of trying to do this right away. You do need to let it sit for a bit, especially if you're using an inkjet printer, to let the ink dry or it will smudge. I have ruined so many envelopes not waiting for it to dry. So please, please, please let it dry so you do not waste time and material doing this. Okay, you guys, the next step is the matte thermal laminating pouches. I am now using the Scotch brand. I used to use another brand, but this one just has a lot more in it. It comes with 50. So this is what we're going to use. And I'm going to show you guys what we're going to do next. This is the next step in creating the envelope. So first, what we're going to do, because the edges are rounded, I like to cut those off. I'll start with one side. And what I'm going to do, you can see here, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to measure the width of one of the envelopes to make sure I'm getting a little bit more of an accurate cut. And I'm just going to cut right down. Sorry, this desk isn't the biggest, so I'm going to try to do it the best way that I can with the space that I can. So as you can see, it's lined up here. I'm going to do it just not to cut the actual vellum, and then cut that down. And then what we're going to do, so the width has to be the exact width, but the height needs to be a little bit more than this. It can't be the exact, and I'll tell you guys why when I get there. So these are about 3.2, as you guys seen when I measured it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them at about 3.5. You can see down here. And now I have 3 of those. Now let's put everything together. Because of how my laminating machine is set up, I have to stack it on top of a few books. So that's what you guys are seeing. But this is one of the matte laminating pouches that I have here. I'm just going to open it up. And remember those little pieces that we had cut out? What we're going to do now, pay attention here because this is very important. If you don't do this, the envelope won't open like an envelope. It'll just be sealed shut. You're going to take one of those pieces. You see how you can open it up? You're going to flip it so that the opposite sides touch. This is going to make sure that the envelope actually opens like an envelope and does not stick together. And then you're going to line up that vellum right on top, okay? And here you also want to be really careful. You can use a flat surface. I normally do it up to the side. You want to make sure that everything lines up properly. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect, but line it up as best as you can. Sometimes I may have to go back in and cut off a little bit because, you know, it could just be off by a tad bit, which is fine. Go back in and cut off the little bit that you need to cut off, which I'm doing over here on the side. It's barely anything. Just make sure that you line up each end as precisely as you can, right? And the bottom as well. And then you're going to put it in the pouch. Now, when you put it in the pouch, I like to, because I do 3 at a time, I put it as close to the edge as possible with keeping just a little bit there. And then on the sides, because you need some room on the sides. And then the bottom, I'll show you guys what happens when I do the next one. So I'm going to do that for another one. Again, remember, you're going to separate it and flip them so that the opposite sides are touching. And then you're going to line up the vellum. The other one I messed up, so I had to refix it. So here we go. See that? And then I'm going to put it in again. But you see how there's a little bit here? I'm going to cut that off. I'm a perfectionist, so I like to get it as perfect as possible. So then I'm going to put it in there. And that's the first envelope. So I'm going to fix the second one and add the second and the third one in. For the second one, you need to make sure you leave a little bit of space because you're going to hole punch it. The space that I leave, I make sure there's at least 0.5 of an inch or half an inch because my hole punch area is half an inch. So then you want to make sure that there's space in between each, as you guys can see here and here. Now I'm ready to run it through the laminator. It's really, you have to be careful here too, especially me with this one. If you have a different laminator, it's a different story, but because I have it high up and this part is broken, I have to make sure I hold them in place until it starts pulling it through, or else what will happen is the pieces underneath will shift and then it'll just ruin everything and you'll have to start all over again. So I'll show you guys once this has fully ran through the laminator what it looks like after. All right, you guys, and this is what it looks like when it comes out of the laminating machine. This one that I'm pointing to is one of my new matte vellum envelopes. It is the cherry design, and you can see the other one is more of a floral design. I was in a very spring mood and decided to create these two. They are actually both available now on my website if you want to go ahead and check those out. I don't know, lately I've been into cherries and just because it is spring into anything floral. So again, both are available on my website. All right, it's time to cut these out. So like I mentioned, the hole punch area is about half an inch. So here I am showing you guys how I line up the envelope and leave half an inch before cutting. I'm going to do that for all 3 envelopes. For the sides, I don't really have a measurement. I just make sure to cut enough and leave just a slight amount on the side so that the envelope doesn't split open, as you can see here. I do the same for the top. I see a lot of people cut directly on the vellum or right where the vellum starts, but this will make the envelopes actually split open, or as I have seen it, it will start to bubble and separate the vellum and the laminating pouch. So I like to leave a little bit of a space so that it can remain sealed. And then I go ahead and I cut that out. As you can see, it still has a little bit of space at the top. It's not cut directly onto the matte vellum. And then of course I go ahead and I cut the other side of the envelope. And this is what it looks like once you have finished cutting it out. You can see the envelope does open. Now it's ready for hole punch. I'm sorry about this. My phone is overheating, clearly. So the flash isn't working. So the last thing I need to do is actually hole punch them. You can get a hole punch on Amazon. This is the one I have. And I'm just going to hole punch them. Just make sure that you're doing the right size. Your holes line up with the right size of the envelope that you're doing. And then that's it. And you guys see that the envelope's open and all is well. So you can run them through the laminator and then put like a heavy book on them, on top of them, just to make sure that they stay flat for a bit. But I will be actually packing this order right now, so I don't really have to worry about that. They won't be sitting for long. And that's how I make my matte vellum cash envelopes. So that's going to be the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it and learned something. And I want to thank you guys so much for watching. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.